Good morning, welcome to CATEX-TV. My name is Frank Fortunato. This is a live broadcast from Princeton, New Jersey. Today is Friday, April 8th, 2011. It's 11:30 a.m. Eastern Time in the U.S., 4:30 p.m. in London. In Hamilton, it's 12:30. In Mexico City, 10:30. If you need to reach us during the broadcast, you can phone in toll-free at 1-866-67-CATEX. Overseas, our AOL instant mail address is CATEX-TV. As of right now, at 11:30 a.m. on Friday, April 8th, it looks as if the United States government is going to shut down at midnight tonight. The White House has been unable to secure a deal. The White House and the Senate, I should add, have been unable to secure a deal with the House Republicans, who are insisting on the insertion of so-called ideological riders in their budget cut, as they continue to try to attack last year's budget, the one that was approved last year for 2011. Things such as women's health issues, abortion funding, Head Start programs, and other things are being insisted upon by the House Republicans to be removed after they've already been approved by the prior Congress. So it's going to shut down tonight, and we'll see where the chips fall. Hopefully they'll fall in the right spot. We'll go to our main news. Well, yesterday I was at a meeting at a reinsurer up in Connecticut, and cell phones began to jiggle, and when people looked, they saw that there was a pretty big aftershock off of Japan, just about the same area where the big quake on March 11th occurred. This one was originally reported as a 7.5. It came down to about a 7.1. 3 people ended up being killed. A tsunami with about 3 feet in height ended up coming ashore. A number of cell phone networks went down because base stations were put out of action. The NTT Docomo network said that 1,200 more base stations were now out of action. This is a 200% increase. The KDDI Corporation said that the number of base stations that were now out of operation for them had increased from 185 before the aftershock up to 619. This is going to make it very difficult for people to communicate. Over 1 million people right now remain in the dark in the area of Japan to the west of Sendai. A total of 3.8 million had been in the dark at some point last night, but they've managed to restore power to all but 1 million of them. Well, Tokyo Electric Power, whose veracity can never be questioned, obviously, said this morning that they have not found any abnormalities in the troubled Fukushima nuclear plant as a result of the aftershock. There are plenty of abnormalities in the plant, but the aftershock didn't make anything worse. A company spokesman said that the conclusion came after an examination of the plant in the wake of the aftershock. The spokesperson said that the injection of nitrogen into the number 1 reactor is still underway, and that the pumping of water into both number 1 and number 3 is still going on. The injection of nitrogen, of course, is to forestall another hydrogen explosion, which authorities believe could in fact be the end for the containment vessel, which would lead to a gigantic radiation leak. As of this moment in Syria on Friday, after the prayers in the mosque, police are firing tear gas and live ammunition into a crowd that marched out of the mosque in the southern city of Dara. Thousands of people are protesting an unrest. This could be the biggest demonstration to date. The sound of shooting can be heard through telephone interviews. Witnesses said it's not clear whether security forces are shooting at the protesters or in the air. Another activist is saying that the northeastern town of Amuda is staging a demonstration there. Dara, as I said, down in the south. In the middle, of course, is Damascus. There was a big power outage in the suburbs of Johannesburg yesterday. About 80% of the power has now been brought back on, but the suburban areas that were black were Norwood, Melrose, Houghton, and Killarney. The Sidna substation apparently had a fire and ended up blacking out a number of suburbs in the area. Stock market in New York is down about 21 points right now as people here wait to see what the effects of the government shutdown will be. We'll go to a word from our sponsors.
design for peace.
Well, Cesar Giranzi has resigned as chairman of Generali, Trieste-based Generali. Following an extraordinary meeting of the board of directors, he resigned, quote, due to differences with other board members. The big insurer said in a statement that Giranzi resigned as chairman and a member of the board after, quote, careful reflection, and as a result, here's the real reason, and as a result of the situation that has developed owing to differences that prevent his involvement in Generali. Generali had nothing further to say. Mr. Giranzi, who's 76 years old, will retain his post as president of the Generali Foundation that supports social welfare and cultural initiatives. Members of the Generali board have been in a little bit of an upheaval lately over the company's growth strategy. Recently, its Eastern European growth strategy had come under dispute, particularly concerning a deal with a Czech insurance group, PPF, through which Generali owns 51% of a joint venture. One of Generali's board members, a Frenchman, a billionaire named Vincent Bolloré, questioned the transparency of the deal and of Generali's Eastern European strategy in general. That flap caught the attention of the Italian markets regulator, which asked Generali for more information about that arrangement. Well, our friend Tony Belial's down in Bermuda, actually, I guess he's in London, who started CATCO, that's the listed fund investing in catastrophe insurance, is actually out raising more money because there's an increased appetite to invest in his fund. The CATCO Reinsurance Opportunities Fund is an open-ended investment vehicle. It's listed on the London Stock Exchange. It announced today that it would issue a batch of new shares, having reached the limit on the amount of new capital it could raise with its existing number of shares. Belial's fund, which stood at $90 million at the end of March, raised over $7 million from investors this month, and under terms of its launch agreement is compelled to issue more shares to take on more capital. In mid-January, according to a note they sent out to investors, the fund said that they had no more than 11% exposure to any one specific type of disaster. All right, so theoretically, they had no more than 11% exposure to, say, for example, earthquake. Its exposure to all natural perils in Japan was 3%, and a split 8% exposure to Caribbean and Japanese earthquakes. So they probably did pretty well, actually, or they certainly didn't get hurt. The fund spokesman said that there had been such appetite from investors after the earthquake that the fund's directors had decided to issue more shares to allow more investment. Well, Goldman Sachs is nosing into the Chinese life insurance market. They paid AXA more than $900 million for a 12% stake in Taikang Life, China's fourth largest life insurance company. AXA sold 12% of its 15.5% stake in the company to Goldman. They ended up selling other parts of it to China Guardian Auctions and New Deal Investment. This information is all coming from the China Insurance Regulatory Commission. Goldman was selected by AXA as the preferred bidder for the big chunk of the Taikang stake. Life insurance is growing rapidly in China. It's growing at an estimated 20% a year increase. And in January, we reported on a fire in the Alberta coal fields, or actually the tar fields, where they squeeze oil out of shale. Aon is estimating now that that January fire could produce a potential billion-dollar energy loss. The fire was at the Canadian Natural Resources Limited Alberta oil sands operation. Inside Fact is reporting this news. Inside Fact is saying that significant reinsurance and insurance placements were brokered by Aon, and a number of London market players are believed to be on the slip. January 2011 fire broke out at the Horizon oil sands site near Fort McKay in northern Alberta. The fire ended up starting in an upgrader across from the plant where bitumen is converted into crude oil. The 480-foot coker structure, that's like a pretty high building, it's about a 48-story building sized structure, which uses heat to convert bitumen into crude oil, caught fire. Individuals at the site claimed that the explosion caused flames and smoke to shoot hundreds of feet into the air. The site was shut down, produced about 90,000 barrels a day in 2010, and to my knowledge, it has not yet reopened. It produces about 6% of Canada's oil sands output. Well, yesterday was the day. Those folks at Colorado State University came out with their annual hurricane prediction. About the second or third one now. AccuWeather came out with theirs last week, so Colorado came out with theirs this week. They said that the 2011 hurricane season in the Atlantic will be above average. With 9 hurricanes, 5 of them will be major. And there's a more than 70% chance that one of them will hit the American coastline. They reduced their early December forecast. We'll get to that in a bit. They had said that the in the November forecast, they were expecting 9 of them to turn to hurricane. Now they're down to 7. Of the 7 that are going to turn to hurricanes, 5 becoming major Category 3 storms or more. They predict a 72% chance that at least one major hurricane will make landfall in the U.S. According to the study's authors, we've reduced our forecast slightly from early December due to a combination of recent ocean warming in the eastern and central tropical Pacific, as well as recent cooling in the tropical Atlantic. Here's the study's author, Dr. William Gray, who is a man of considerable achievement in the meteorological sector. But Dr. Gray is well known in the industry for putting out these annual estimates. And one of these predictions is as good as any of the other ones. So the only thing we've always found curious is how Dr. Gray, sitting in his mountaintop campus in Colorado, can maintain such an interest in hurricanes that strike the Atlantic. Well, good for him. If we have any breaking news, we'll come back and tell you. In the meantime, the stock indexes keep bouncing around in the red, concerned about the government shutdown in the U.S. Will not be a good move for the recovering economy, that's for sure. Have a good weekend, and we'll see you Monday.